Hello everybody, my name is Kurt Stevens and this is my YouTube channel, Madras Arsenal. Today we're at historic Fort Washita in Oklahoma. It was built in 1842 in the Indian Territory by Major General Taylor, who would later become President Taylor. So, it's very cold outside, hit the like and subscribe button. Let's get in here and take a tour of this amazing fort. Alright. We're going to go up here to the old hospital. As you can see, the layout's very open. I'll explain that here in a few minutes. Right here you got the old hospital, stone foundation. It would have been a stone building, but essentially it would be replaced later on down that way by a new hospital. And the cool thing about that is the new hospital was so advanced it could hold 8 individuals. Now this is a very small foundation. It can only hold 1 person at a time. Not very effective when there's a war going on. So coming into the fort, you're immediately going to notice the barracks buildings over here. Unfortunately, they are in ruins now, but as we get closer and as we get further into our tour, you're going to get really inside of them and see just how nice these barracks were for the time being. Keep in mind, this is the 1840s we're talking about. Let's keep going. Right here we have a kitchen. This is one of the many kitchens that were on post. Again, it's made of a stone foundation. You can see the fireplace part right here. And this would have extended up, 10, 15, 20 feet. But this was a small kitchen. This was a small post when it first started. It would later grow to be around 3,000 soldiers. So, let's keep going. So there's not much left of the guardhouse. And this would have been where your sergeant of the guard would have been, who would give out your daily guard duties. He would also... This guardhouse would also house whatever soldiers were in confinement or detained or prisoners that were traveling through. This was a major thoroughfare all the way down to California, so this was a vital link. The closest post at this time was 80 miles east. This was the southwesternmost fort in the United States at this time. So this is out in the middle of nowhere, right? But it was vital because it had to protect the trail that went to California. Let's keep... So right here we have the old commissary, right? This was a basement area. It would have been a structure above this as well, but you would have had your storage down here where it would have been kept cool. From what I had read, it could hold about 300 barrels worth of liquid or dry goods, things like that. This would have been a very important building to keep safe, keep dry, keep from burning down, things like that, because without food, you're not going to be able to feed your soldiers for very long. This is vital on a fort. So we're going to kind of go down in this a little bit, show you what's left. You can see these foundations are still strong and they're still standing today, right? With rock and mortar. A lot of this is limestone or granite mixed with mortar, and it still stands to this day, right? Still very, very strong foundation. And like I said, you would have come through here, there would have been a door right here, probably under lock and key. And this is where all of the fort's food would have been stored, all the provisions that would have been needed. The horse feed, the soldiers' feed, bacon, beer, whatever liquor they had for the tavern that was here on post. All your flour, things to make bread. And we'll go over to the kitchens later. There's a whole section of kitchens, right, to feed all of these soldiers that would have been here. And then we're going to go take a tour of the barracks as we continue on this tour. This is what that commissary would have looked like. This is the door that we were just in. Okay, now this is when it was first built. This is a sketch of it. It's a log cabin. This would later have been replaced by stone at a later date. Lots of room for provisions inside of there. No doubt it would have been under lock and key. Okay, so this is one of the bread ovens. Actually, this is the bread oven, as I should say. It was also called the bake oven, but bread was baked here almost non-stop. I cannot imagine how hot this oven would have been. It would have been running continuously all day long. The only time it cooled down was probably at night when the soldiers went to sleep. But early in the morning, the baker, whoever that would have been, as I understand it, soldiers would rotate on a daily basis, and it was like an additional duty for the soldiers. And it was their duty to bake the bread for the day. Dozens of loaves of bread, right? Because at one point, during the Mexican-American War, around 3,000 soldiers were stationed at this fort, okay? Now, the reason for that is because this was a staging area as the U.S. soldiers went down into Texas and into Mexico. Bet you didn't know that, did you? But that's why this site is so cool and why it's so neat to preserve sites like this. But this is a vital part. Soldiers had to have bread. They have to eat. And this was that lifeline. So we're gonna get in here and get a close look, all right? This is the oven door, all right? It's an iron door. This is reconstructed, to my understanding. I don't know if any bread or anything like that is baked in here, but this is the lifeline of the fort. So now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the barracks buildings. We're going to take a tour inside of those and show you where the soldiers lived. So behind me, you can see both barracks. Alright, now think originally, these would have had porches on them, they would have had roofs on them. Those have since been destroyed, alright? The one over here, this is called the West Barracks. When the Confederates left the fort in 1865, it is understood that they burned the entire fort, alright? Everything, all the buildings, everything they burned, right, as they left. These barracks were reconstructed around the 70s. These were the East Barracks. They burned down in about 2010. I do not know if there's plans now to reconstruct that, but these are the original foundations, the original stone walls. Let's go in and take a look. These were the South Barracks, and these are the ones that burned down in 2010. I made a mistake earlier and called them the East Barracks, but they are the South Barracks. Let's go inside and take a look and see how the soldiers lived. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot left. It's kind of unfortunate, but you can see this fireplace indicates that it was 2 stories high, and it's just a testament to how amazing this structure was. As I said earlier, these are all original. This is original brick, original mortar when the building was first made. And I think it's just really cool because you would have known soldiers would have been going through here, through their daily lives, things like that. It's really quite sad, honestly. We are now at the West Barracks. And this was a home for a while up until 1917 when it was burned down and left in the ruinous state that it currently is in. Let's go inside. So here we are at the entrance of the West Barracks. See a doorway right here. Behind me you will see fireplace where the soldiers would have kept warm, much on a day like today. It's probably about 39 degrees out today. So up here you see the original wooden lintels that would have gone above the doorpost, still intact. Undoubtedly, how many soldiers went through these doors is, we'll never know. Over here we can see the original fireplace. This would have gone up all 2 stories. But right here, solid granite. These fireplaces would have radiated heat inside of this whole barracks building. And it was on both sides. We'll go over to the other side here in a second. But you can see, the second level, you would have had another fireplace up there. You would have had orderly rooms for the soldiers to sleep in. And then after the war, this was turned into a personal residence. This fort was divided up into allotments after the Civil War and given to various people within the Comanche Nation because this was Indian territory. So the U.S. government gave up the fort, gave up possession of it. It was never reoccupied after the Confederates left. And so it was given up to the Indian Agency, who divided the fort lands up into allotments and given to different families. This building, as I said earlier, was turned into a home. And unfortunately it burned in 1917, and it's stayed in this state ever since. But a very interesting testament to time. We're going to go over here to this section and get another look. So we were standing over here, but now we're on the other side of the fireplace. We have a giant support beam in order to help hold up the walls against the elements. We see over here another fireplace. Most likely over here there was another doorway, much like there is on this side. There's a doorway, and you probably would have had one company on each side of the fireplaces. So this probably would have been one room where your soldiers slept. Could have been an arms room. It could have been the orderly rooms for each company. We just don't know. And behind you, we're going to go in a second through a doorway, should be probably a porch area where the soldiers would have congregated at. Let's take a look. So through this doorway, soldiers would have exited, and now that I'm looking at it, I tend to think that this is probably where the armory was, the arms room, where all the weapons were kept for the soldiers, probably a lot of their gear, things like that they wouldn't have used on a daily basis, because there wasn't a whole lot of room within your barracks. You're sharing it with, anywhere from 30 to 100 different people. So come on down here and let's take a look. Okay, so right now you guys are in the doorway that I was just in, and this is looking towards this room. I really feel like this could be where they kept their weapons at. I'm going to kind of pan the camera around. I don't even know why I keep saying we, because it's just me that's doing the camera and the talking. But this is a small enough room that I think that's what this would have been used for. I'm going to show you guys exactly what I mean. So down here, this would have been a porch area all the way around. That's why the wall has to be supported. This is what I think would have been the arms room area. you would have had a doorway right here. One thing that I want to point out is how these windows are made. These are very much beveled, like how you would see castle. See how they are wider on the inside. So behind me is the Bowman camp cabin. I believe this was moved here in the 1990s. It's a cabin that would have been typical of this time period. You know, made out of wood logs, chink, you have your stovepipe. This would have been very common for what settlers would have had during, you know, the 1840s all the way up into right around the 1900s, depending on some areas where you lived, especially here in America. If you lived in Appalachia, this is a lot of what you were living in. Very neat. Unfortunately, we can't get inside of it, but I'm sure it'd be pretty sparse. Let's keep going. So, we stepped outside of the barracks that are over here to our right. Now we've come down the hill just a little bit, and when you think of a fort, soldiers have uniforms, right? How are they going to clean their clothes? That's a big question. So, what they would have to do is they would have to have a laundry system. Now, in these laundry systems, a lot of soldiers, their wives would actually be the laundresses. So, back in the old army, the army of the pre-Civil War era, soldiers were allowed to have families, obviously, but they weren't paid to have their families moved with them like they are in the modern times. So, a lot of the soldiers' wives would become laundresses, or they would work in the hospital, or different things that would help supplement their income. Because soldiers, especially the enlisted side, they were not paid very much. And if you were going to be in the military for a long term, or a long time, you had to be able to support your family. And on one soldier's pay, that's not a whole lot for that time period. So the wives would have to find other jobs to be able to do. Being a laundress was one of those jobs. And the soldiers would have brought their uniforms, their dirty clothes down here. They would have washed them, they would have hung them out to dry, and that's how they would have earned their living. They would have been paid by the paymaster. They would have essentially been civilian contractors, if you will. So it was a pretty sizable building. I mean, you got 3,000 soldiers here at you know, sometime in your the highest times. They have to be able to be healthy, be clean, things like that. So yeah, it was a very important part of the camp life, is having a laundry system. Still is to even this day. Let's continue down. We're going to go take a look at the stables, and then we're going to go check out a Confederate cemetery down the hill. So, let's keep going. Hey, so I brought you guys back into the West Barracks, and you guys are sitting in a window behind your computer screen, so to speak. And the reason I wanted to do this is because you have a very good view of the overlying surroundings. Now, when this fort was built, there would have been no trees within 1 mile of this. So just imagine, if you will, all the trees gone. And you have your laundry that we were just at. The laundry station is right down here. Beyond that, all this meadow would have been where the horses would have been. Keep in mind, this was a cavalry fort, or a cavalry post. As I said earlier, this was the southwesternmost located fort in the United States. So this is the 1840s to the 1860s. Keep in mind that you're getting Native American raids, you're getting raids from people like bandits, things like that. So it was a very important fort. But the cavalry were instrumental throughout the western history of the United States. So their horse herd would have covered all of this land down here. So I just kind of wanted to give you a perspective. The stables would have been further off to the right, my right, your left, and just a really, really cool piece of history. So I just noticed some graffiti right here, so I'm gonna bring you guys over here so you can see it. Okay, so I just noticed this as I was telling you guys about the laundry thing, and this is some period graffiti. I would imagine this was, I don't even know. I don't see any dates on it. I see a 17 right here. So maybe 1917, I don't know, guys. But I see ardor Ardson, A-R-D-S-O-N. Maybe it was Richardson, I don't know. But just a really cool piece of history that I just happened to find while I was talking to you guys. It looks, I don't, it's hard to say because I see some symbols in it that look like it could be Native American, so I don't know. Really, really cool piece. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it looks like an ancient @ symbol. I guess somebody was ahead of their time. This is the Cooper cabin. Reconstructed log cabin from the time period. Sort of in the doctor's office. This is what a typical American cabin would look like on the inside. Very small, very simple. It would have your lamps, a small cupboard. Life was a lot more simple back then. Now this grave, remember as I said, this was a Confederate fort from around 1861 to 1865. The Confederates took it over. The Union abandoned this fort at the outbreak of the Civil War. The commanders felt the need was needed eastward after Fort Sumter was fired upon, so they left this fort in 1861. And it was vacant for a few months until the Confederates took it over. A lot of people forget that the Civil War did not stop at the Mississippi River. It went, on out here into Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Texas. So this fort was not given up until I think August of 1865, whereas the war had already ended in April, so several months prior. But this grave is a marker. There's over 200 unknown Confederates buried in this plot. It's a reminder that they were soldiers, they were American soldiers, fighting for a cause that they fervently believed in. They did not win the war. A lot of their records were destroyed, especially I'm sure when the Confederates left this post, they probably burned a lot of the records, and that's why we don't know any of the names. From what I understand, from what the park understands, is that they died of disease, possibly injuries sustained from various raids. There were a few battles that went on in Oklahoma, or Indian Territory as it was called at that time, but these soldiers are buried here, and unfortunately have not quite been forgotten, but they're unmarked. People don't know their names, but they're buried here. They were people's families, their husbands, sons, nephews, uncles, cousins to somebody. And it's unfortunate that we don't know their names or their history, but we should never forget them. So that is what this area is for. The park has done a great job at doing their best to remember them. So keep that in mind whenever you see unmarked graves, regardless of what nation. So yeah. That about concludes it for the video. I hope y'all enjoyed this tour. I certainly enjoyed making it. We're going to keep doing more tour videos, but I just want to thank my patrons, Exciser, Michael Blum, and then Aaron Hook. Really appreciate you guys. Y'all's contributions and support definitely help making these videos, getting better equipment, things like that. So if you feel like supporting the channel, click the link, or the link for Patreon. I would hugely appreciate it. But thanks for watching. It's freezing, my battery is almost dead, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.